Final hour overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. We got Jake Delhomme later in the hour. Darren Dreger coming up here in a moment. The Leafs are in action tonight. Ilya Samsonov will get the start for the Leafs. Scott Wedgwood will get the start for Dallas. And the Stars are a legit team. They won in Buffalo last night. They're leading the Central. And
that's all you got to say, Hazy. Leading the Central.
Mm-hmm. Yep, legit team. Really good team. Well-coached team. Playoff team every year. Like, you know you're going into one tonight. If you're the Leafs, you better have your A game tonight. And I expect they will. I don't think they can be happy with the way everything played out on Monday night against the Islanders. Sheldon Keefe has been on them. It'll say a lot about, Keefe and his messaging tonight, I think.
As far as what?
Well, I mean, listen, you guys said it. Brian Boyle said it yesterday. Like, pee-wee mistakes, using that term, that is a tough term. And some guys, I'm sure, didn't like it. Timothy Liljegren, I'm sure, didn't love it. Maybe Austin Matthews. Yesterday saying 50% of the time, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you get a poor effort tonight or poor attention to detail tonight, what does that say about them responding to their head coach? Right. I think it might say a lot. I really do.
Oh, dude, don't kid yourself, man. They don't respond tonight. You got serious problems on your hands.
Mm.
Well, I think they're going to respond. Monday nights, for some reason, I can't remember the last Monday night that was unbelievable. Maybe I'm wrong. It always seems like there's that letdown on a Monday night down there. The energy's not great. And it was a kind of a seesaw game. It wasn't the most entertaining game, but that's what the Islanders bring to the table too. There's no ice out there. That was more of a playoff style game where, you want to open it up. You can open it up against the Islanders. They're pretty disciplined defensively, and the goalie was really good. Sorkin made 4 or 5 really good saves. So, you're playing against Dallas. Dallas is a structured team with some skill, but they're a little bit more free flowing. Their back end, Hayes guys like that can really move. They can scoot. So we'll see what the Leafs have for a response tonight. On home ice, you get the last change.
Yep.
We were talking about Sheldon moving guys around or at least giving them opportunities. Let's see if the depth guys can, let's see if we're not talking about Matthews and Marner tomorrow. Let's see if or Willie. Let's see if there's somebody else going, man, he had a good game.
Yeah, ideally. And again, at home, they haven't been great. They're barely over 500.
Man, their home record.
Yeah.
Oof.
It's 11, 10, and 4 or something like that. It's the 19th ranked home record in the league.
Yeah.
They've been very effective on the road. Very effective on the road, which is great. But usually it's the opposite, right?
Right.
It was always try to win 90% of your games at home and 50 or 60% on the road, and you're good. This is kind of the opposite, right? They're batting 750, 800 on the road, and at home it's basically 500. So hopefully that, again, changes starting tonight. Alex Ovechkin scored last night, in a loss for Washington, but now it's funny how I look at Ovi. I check their stats every single night just to see his name, right? Did he score or not? And it has morphed into a scenario with Ovechkin where it's not even about the goal total in the last month or this season. It's he's adding one more chasing Gretzky.
Right.
When you say go total, when you say you check their, are you logging on to .capitals.com?
Well,
or are you just checking box scores?
I'm just talking, box scores. NHL.com or TSN.ca, whatever. I'm not watching every game they play.
Me too. I just want to see if Ovi scored.
That's it. Exactly. I'm they lost last night. Did Ovi get one? Hey, he did. There you go. All right, Ovi got one. He's up to 832 in his career. That's basically what we're doing here. And he's still 62 back at Gretzky, and every goal is just another notch. And it's it seems a lot more distant, though, today than it did 3 months ago.
I'd still like to see him get to 20 goals in the season this year. That way, you're trying to plan out the next couple of years where it's okay, can he get there in 2 years, 2.5 years? Is it 3? That's, for me, that's what I'd like to see. Because I think he's capable of getting, what is he at? Is that his 10th last night?
Yeah, I believe he hit 10 last night. Yeah. 10 or 11.
So, you get there. If he can get to 20 this season, maybe 18
Does he have a
to
heater
20.
in him, though? I know it hasn't been good.
Might have something.
Does he have... Could he go on a heater? And I talked to one of my former teammates that thinks he's going to end up with 26 or 27. And I said, I just don't see it this year. But could he rip off 20 and 30? Or is it just that's like we talked about earlier, that's not his year?
I mean, listen, historically, that would have been a lock, right?
Yes,
Every other year of his
that.
career, that would be the expectation. That might be selling him short. Now it has been such a reversal, like such a ran into the wall scenario here where that would be considered a significant heater. You know, if he scored 15 goals in the next 35 games, that would be almost a shock to the system. That's how quickly it's happened here. And I'm with you. Like, you look at knocking down numbers trying to catch Gretzky. He's 62 back. Can you score 13 and be inside 50 to start next year? Like, that's almost how I look at it. Like, can you get under 50 and next, like, he's not going to score 50 again in a season. That is not that's not going to happen. But next year, can you get 25? And then the next year, it's like, if you hit 25 by the end of the year, you're done. You can retire. See you later.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's achievable. Now it's just time frame achievable. That's what we're looking at. But I'm the same with you. You keep an eye on the game. You see that he scored. You're kind of like, okay, there it is. Another one chipping away at it. I still think he can get to 18 or 20 this year. That's,
But that's close, only 8 or 10 more, Noodles. Like, that's the thing. He hit 10 last night.
Yeah. Like, I think that's what I'm trying to be realistic.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying, my realistic expectation is he can get 8 or 10 more the rest of the season in the 32 games they have left or whatever they have. So, which would be, for him, I think he would want that. And
right. Relatively speaking to this year's standard, that would be good. Like, that would be him actually scoring at a decent pace.
Yeah.
Every other year of his career, he'd be furious with himself. Right. But things have changed, and they've changed quickly here for Alex Ovechkin. Here's Darren Dreger, a TSN Hockey Insider. Do you calculate Ovechkin's goal totals, like, just in comparison to Gretzky like we do, Dregs, or are you still living in the moment with him?
No, look, I mean, I think it's reality, right? That's what it is. And now Ovi is sitting at 832 goals, is that right?
Yep.
So he's 62 back of Gretz, and, the simple math tells us that Father Time has caught up. I'm not prepared to say it's over, that, he can't flip a switch and get going again. We've seen that historically, but I don't think through 45 games we've seen this lack of production from Alex Ovechkin. So it feels doubtful, but I still like the storyline, and as long as Wayne Gretzky's on board and is willing to cheer for Ovi in this quest, then I'm going to stay on that side of it.
Yeah, I hear you. And I'd love to hear what Gretzky thinks now, where I'm sure a year ago he thought it was a foregone conclusion. The guy's been a machine every year of his career.
Never mind Gretzky. What's Ovi going to do? Like, you think he's going to keep chipping away at 10-goal seasons? How long is he going to do that for?
As long as they keep paying him. And look, the other thing too is it's going to get more of a challenge, right? Like, I think that Brian McLennan, GM there, has done a real nice job of trying to keep the window open as wide as he can for Ovi and the group, but it doesn't look like it's sustainable anymore, is it? So, now we're looking at the Washington Capitals, and they're high on our trade radar because, I would have said 2 weeks ago, okay, you keep the dream alive and maybe you win a few games and you stay in the mix. Well, they get slapped around by the Montreal Canadiens last night to the tune of 5-2. And now I'm looking at it and I'm going, you know what? Next 3 or 5 games for the Caps are going to be very, very telling. So all of a sudden now if those 3-5 games don't go well, Joel Edmondson legitimately pops into the trade market. Anthony Mantha's name has been out there for a long, long time, but I think that Brian McLennan does make a push to try and move some pieces out. They don't have a choice but to at least renovate, and then what does that do to the dream of Alex Ovechkin and the goal-scoring record? It probably pretty much snuffs it out.
I don't think so. You know what I would do, Dregs? And it sounds kind of goofy because it's a team sport. This is Gretzky's record. Like, you can renovate, you can move some pieces out, you can do whatever. But I'm going to be aggressive and get 2 really good players to play with this guy And I don't care what it costs because I want to see him break the record. And I'm going to get some guys in there to play with him. It was just like Ray Ferraro's line in Atlanta. They were a garbage team. But Ray and Donald Audette and Andrew Burnett, they got 3 points each, and they lost 7-3. So that's just all you do with that team. They're going to lose 7-3. Just put some good line mates with them.
Let me ask you guys this, though. This is obviously not a great year for Alex Ovechkin. Is there, in your mind, a chance where he goes, he trains really hard in the offseason, and he comes back and has somewhat of a bounce back? It's not a 50-goal season. But what if he comes back and scores 31? Something like that. Like, is there a chance, like, through the four of us, is that a possibility for Alex Ovechkin? Like, because now we're talking like this is the beginning and the end, this is the end, he's going to limp to the finish line. Is there one great push back in him, like one season where things do go right for him, still left for him?
Yes, and I pause in just saying it because I'm doubtful, but I'm not the guy that's going to bet publicly against Alex Ovechkin. I mean, we've seen enough greatness from this man and enough confidence and commitment that it's conceivable. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Although when I'm out and about, and you guys have probably heard the same, I mean, what is he, 38? I think he turns 39 in September, if memory serves. I mean, I still get asked, is he actually 38 or is his birth certificate been altered over time? Like, is he 40?
He might be 44. I've played with a few guys who lost their birth certificate.
Yeah, exactly. So, look, I haven't dug deep into Ovi and the fact that he's only got 10 and 45. I don't think that he's dealing with anything that's nagging or any of that. It feels like if there were injuries that were holding him back, that they would have just, they would have parked him for an extended period of time and allowed him to get healthy. So I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, and I'm saying it's possible, but I also think it's unlikely.
Yeah.
With Darren Dreger, our TSN hockey insider, obviously the Leafs are in action tonight, and we've been discussing Sheldon Keefe and his commentary the last couple of games, even the last few weeks.
Yes,
bit of a different tone.
You have, yeah.
We have. I'm curious if how you feel about that commentary and where you think it's coming from, because it sounds like a different Sheldon Keefe than maybe what we've heard in the past.
Well, look, again, I'll give Sheldon Keefe the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's comfortable enough now in his skin as an NHL head coach in a real difficult market where he's just calling it like he sees it. And he's not worried about bruising egos or feelings or any of that. And, if he's saying it to the media, I always say the same thing. If he's saying it to the media, then he's said it to the players that he's talking about to their face. Timothy Liljegren knew that, he needed to be aware of the clock. But as Sheldon acknowledged the day after and not post-game, and in fairness, he wasn't pushed on it post-game, he could have made a change there too, right? Like, there was a coaching opportunity to do something different, and he didn't take advantage of that. So that's why he accepted part of that responsibility. Then you go further into that, and he was asked about the number of games, the percentage of games where he felt like the Maple Leafs played well. And correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, what did he say, 50%?
50%.
Where they played really well?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's plausible. If we went game by game to this point, we'd probably all agree he's not wrong. But is that not part of the head coach's responsibility, is to prepare your team, keep them going, coach them to a level of consistency so that you're not looking back and saying that, 50% of the games they didn't play as well as they could have. So that's the danger area that you get in when you're dealing with a market like the Toronto Maple Leafs have. So I don't mind, his cutting shots. I got all the time in the world because it gives us a whole lot to talk about, but he's got to be ready for the pushback as well. And not the pushback internally, the pushback outside of the organization, because we watch the games and we analyze the games very closely as well.
With Darren Dreger, our TSN hockey insider. Vegas, we've discussed them a fair amount today too, Dregs. With Edmonton obviously going through there last night, they lose. But, Vancouver's made moves. Winnipeg's made moves. There's focus on what is Colorado going to do, what's Dallas is going to do. Vegas is always active. Like, they're always active. They've been the most active team in the league since they showed up.
Yeah.
And they're dealing with injuries right now with Eichel and Theodore, and, there's been other guys.
Yeah.
But why would we expect anything less with that front office between now and the deadline that Vegas would continue to try to at least tweak, if not load up, and feel they can win again?
Absolutely. There is 0% chance that Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee aren't going to do something if they have cap space available based on long-term injury. They're not going to know that until, oh boy, it'll be right at the deadline, and they'll be pushing. I mean, if there's a player or players that aren't going to be ready until the start of the playoffs, then you can be sure that McCrimmon and company are going to utilize that space. But, they're not just shooting fish here. They're going to look, and they're going to be sensitive to whatever their exact needs are. I mean, the goalie carousel just continues to be impressive in Vegas. And, Aiden Hill has had a tough year mostly because of injury. As you guys have talked about, he comes out last night and fires 30 saves against the Edmonton Oilers and stops a record time streak. So now maybe they don't have to worry about goaltending. But, yeah, I mean, if there's any opportunity, and not dabbling, if there's any opportunity to make a splash, and Vegas is masterful, guys. Like, we talk about some of the bigger pieces in play, and I'm not connecting Vegas to any of them. But I'm just saying, you've got Tanev out there. You've got, who else? Adam Henrique. You've got all of these interesting pieces. And we connect them to Colorado, and we connect them to Boston. And Toronto, of course, wants Tanev, and this team wants Tanev, and this team is after Sean Walker. Watch Vegas sneak in here under the wire before March 8th and grab one of those top pieces. If there's a way, there's 100% a will. That's just the way they operate.
With Darren Dreger, TSN Hockey Insider, what's going on here? Arizona, Seattle. Like, where do we stand on this?
Yeah.
Well, we know Arizona's not going to Seattle.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Salt Lake City, not Seattle.
Salt Lake City. Sorry. Yeah. Arizona is not going to Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City,
Yeah. No, Salt Lake City is doing this the right way. We're talking about Ryan Smith, who owns the Utah Jazz, right? Mm-hmm. And I think he's been well advised, probably by the commissioner's office of the National Hockey League, to follow the template that other newer, successful owners have followed. And I think of Mark Chipman, sitting there waiting, talked about this team, talked about that team. Then the Atlanta Thrashers land, and boom, there's a relocation. They become Winnipeg Jets 2.0. So, expansion may happen for Ryan Smith in Salt Lake City. It'll be expensive, as we've reported, upwards of $2 billion in a expansion fee. And the National Hockey League continues to wait to see, what's going to happen with the Arizona Coyotes and the Marullo family as they continue to battle to try and lock down a property to build a facility. What I was told by a high-ranking NHL source today, amid all the speculation, that is, if there's news coming, it's not from the NHL, and the Coyotes ownership is not told the National Hockey League that they have anything to announce at this point either. So I'm not here to pour cold water on the speculation. It just feels like if there was something big, the NHL head office would know about it.
Dregs, with the trades over, we'll call it over the All-Star weekend there, Lindholm, Monahan, do you feel like the trade market is heating up a little bit? Down center ice position, obviously Lindholm seemed to be the number one. Yeah. Monahan seemed to be the number two. Is Calgary in the mix? Is some of the teams that are kind of rumored to have players available, do you see more action, kind of picking up here since the dominoes have started to fall?
Well, I did initially, Noodles. You're right. As soon as Lindholm went to Vancouver, I think Cheveldayoff just decided in Winnipeg, all right, we have a specific need here, so let's not wait much longer. And, Winnipeg had time, I believe, for Adam Henrique with the Anaheim Ducks, but just felt like Monahan ticked more boxes. And that was a heavy negotiation between Cheveldayoff and Ken Hughes. And I'm sure it got a little contentious at times. All those bigger trades do. But at the end of it all, Winnipeg ended up getting their player, and they paid a good price to acquire that piece from the Montreal Canadiens. So, we're keeping an eye on Henrique. Scotty Lawton with the Philadelphia Flyers name has been out there, and I think it's loosely out there, and I've talked about it, so I'm not distancing myself, but it's loosely out there because the market for centermen is relatively thin. So we've now shifted our focus as insiders over to, just a myriad of speculating that's going on around the defense world, right? I think I heard or read today that the Leafs were closing in on Tanev, and this was happening and that was happening. And it takes a text or two, and you find out, that's not true. I do think that everyone is waiting for Tanev to go, because when he goes, then that changes maybe what Danny Briere is thinking on Sean Walker, Nick Seeler in Philadelphia, the Washington Capitals, and Joel Edmondson. I mean, go down the list, right? Like, there's always those secondary tiers. So I think that now we're in a bit of a holding pattern, and as soon as I say that, there'll be a trade in about 30 minutes from now. But we are in a bit of a holding pattern, more so on the defensive market than anything.
Greggs, how shocked are you that Tanev is still sitting there? It's like everybody wants this right-handed D, and they pulled the trigger on Lindholm. They pulled the trigger on Monahan. Like, why hasn't anybody done it? Does that price scare them off, or whatever that price is? Like, I'm shocked the amount of teams that say they're dying for this right-handed D, the Leafs included, and yet he's still sitting there.
Well, Ottawa would make a deal tomorrow because they see Tanev as being, and I use this term, a foundational fit moving forward. But Tanev isn't, ready, I don't think, to wipe away the rest of the year. He's chasing a Stanley Cup. My theory is that, and if you're Craig Conroy, you might as well play poker for as long as you can. If you think there's a chance, a sliver of a chance, that Brad Treliving is going to part with his first-round draft pick, why wouldn't you wait for it? And while the waiting continues, that tells you that that tells the market that there isn't a second-round draft pick yet that Craig Conroy is ready to move on to move Chris Tanev, or the fit isn't right for Tanev and his family. All of those things, all those factors go into play. I think, fellas, we'd all be surprised at the teams that are interested in Chris Tanev. Some of them are obvious. Toronto, for sure. Ottawa has been widely reported. I don't know how they would make it work. I think the Oilers would love to have Chris Tanev. I mean, it would probably come at the expense of Cody Ceci either this year, period, if you're trying to extend him. But there's a team that I hadn't heard about that I heard about today. And I'm not putting them in the realm of being a front runner, just one of the many teams that has expressed interest in this player. So I guess in a long way, I'm saying that if you're Conroy and that level of interest is there, why not hold it until you get closer to the trade deadline? With the obvious risk being if the player gets hurt, then you end up with nothing. But I guess that's a risk everybody takes every year.
Yeah, that's the nature of the beast. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, he'll be flipped, though, right? Like, he's not going to stay in Calgary.
No, I don't think so. I don't get that sense. And I'll tell you, quickly, I know we got to go here, Brian, but I'm sure that Connie has had some sleepless nights thinking about that, right? Because he's a good dude. He's a good player. You worry about the durability of him, I guess, because of where he's at age-wise and whatnot. But when you're moving out high-character individuals, you do worry about how you replace that. But Craig Conroy's in the business of making his team better moving forward.
Yep. All right, Dregs, we'll leave it there. Thank you for this.
Okay, guys, have a good one.
Darren Dreger, our TSN Hockey Insider. We're about a month away from the deadline. I guess technically a month tomorrow.
Yeah, but how do you? You're looking at the defensive crop that are rumored to be available. Sean Walker, Chris Tanev, guys like that. Calgary's got a decision to make with Noah Hanifin. They're players, but you got to figure out who's the best fit for you and then try and go after them. And you have to think there's probably 4 or 5 teams that are in on that same player. So Cheval day off. We talked about it. Did he overpay for Monahan? But that's the player he wanted, and he's like, you know what? Somebody else is going to probably be in that conversation a month from now or 2 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. I'm moving on it right now. So, be interesting to see what the marketplace, if it shifts for a guy like Tanev, who is, very well coveted. He's a hell of a person and he's a hell of a player, but Greg Conroy's going to, I don't want to say king's ransom, but he's going to get a good clip for Tanev.
Well, and he's got to know what the price is, and just like Lindholm, where like Vancouver paid it, so they did it.
Yeah.
Which I think is what you're driving at. I'm sure the price is, if you want to pay it, you could have him tonight. Just no one's done it. So why?
If that was the guy I identified that would shore up my defense core, I'm like, I don't want anybody else to have him. And I know there's all kinds of pressure points. And there's all kinds of things that behind the scenes that I don't really deal with. But if that's the guy I need or that I want to kind of put it all together, I'm getting him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Super Bowl 58, rapidly approaching. Jake Delhomme coming up. He knows what it's like to prepare for a Super Bowl, play in a Super Bowl.
Our guy,
Jake Delhomme. We're going to have him back on the show. We're looking forward to it. We'll catch
do you
up
think
with
he
him.
Remembers?
No, and we don't want to trigger that memory
do
at
not
all.
say anyone says a word.
Anyone says the word plumber, you're off the show permanently.
You're off the show.
Even if you're talking about a plumber, you cannot say it. Cannot say it. Jake Delhomme coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Leafs and Raptors in action tonight. Dallas and Tampa and the Leafs. You got the Raptors as a favorite down in Charlotte tonight, which says more about Charlotte than it really does the Raptors. But as for the Super Bowl, we're inching closer. It is almost go time, Niners and the Chiefs. And, of course, you're going to hear that on TSN, watch it on TSN, CTV. We are jacked for that game. And I'm sure everyone in the football world is thinking the same thing. What's going to happen here? What is Mahomes going to bring to the table? What's Brock Purdy going to bring to the table? Very few guys have been in that position, starting quarterback in a Super Bowl, and one of them happens to be on the line right now. Here is longtime NFLer, Panthers analyst. Here is Jake Delhomme. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing this evening?
We're doing very well. We're looking forward to the game. When you get to Super Bowl week, is it a nostalgic feeling for you?
It definitely is, and it was just last week. It was the 20-year anniversary of our Super Bowl in Carolina against the New England Patriots. So it definitely does. It brings back a lot of great memories, except the last few seconds when Adam Vinatieri broke our hearts and Tom Brady on their last drive. But no, it was a great week. It brings back memories of a great season that we had, a great playoff run that we had, and all the fun that we had up in at Houston for the Super Bowl, and we just came up a little short.
Jake, how painful is the downtime, like just waiting for the game? I know you get the media stuff out of the way, but there's got to be a lot of just solo time in the hotel, like just thinking about everything. Like, how miserable was that, or was that somehow enjoyable?
You know what? Really and truly, I wasn't that miserable, to be quite honest, and I didn't do anything. I just kind of stayed holed up in the hotel, and we would travel to go to practice. We practiced at the University of Houston, and then I'd come back to the hotel. We had meetings. So my week was pretty regimented in exactly, what I needed to do to be able to play the game. But just, I think on the practice field, we started to get very antsy toward the latter part of the week because we had a few practices in the week before we left Charlotte to go down for the Super Bowl. And then you're on edge. It's like that racehorse that's just ready to run. Everybody's on edge. You feel like you're ready, and practices got a little chippy. But I think we all kind of liked that because, that was just kind of our mindset at that time. But really and truly, the media, it was a huge amount of media, not anything to what it is today with the social media aspect of it. But the week was not overly bad, to be quite honest.
I've always wondered, like, how anxious you would be about anything happening. You stub your toe, you're like, great, I just broke my toe. You eat something, it doesn't sit well, you're like, I got the flu, I'm toast. Like, is that part of your mentality where you're just like, you want to be like bubble wrapped?
Don't screw it up.
Don't screw it up. I'm here, I'm in the Super Bowl, I got to get there and I got to play.
No, that wasn't the case, and I'll tell you why. Your confidence is through the roof because obviously you've had a good football season. You were a winning football team during the season. but then you've just won 2 or 3 games in the playoffs, if you had a bye or not. So the confidence level is through the roof. You're obviously playing good football, and you can't wait. You almost feel like you're invincible, to be quite honest. That's kind of the feeling that you have, like, this is our year. Both teams feel the exact same way. This is our year. We're going to do it. And we can't wait to do it on the NFL's biggest stage. And that's kind of the mindset. So I can't really say that ever came into play.
Once the game gets going, how do you deal with the distractions? And what I mean by, the anthem and then the extra long halftime, some of the things that you can't control that come with, playing on the biggest stage in the biggest game. How do you deal with those either breaks or, the anxiety that maybe comes with, some of the stuff that you can't control?
I think it was leading up to it. You felt the emotions that were just something you've never felt when we went out to warm up, when we came out the tunnel for the introduction, the national anthem, the emotions. But once the game started, it flew by. It was like playing in just a regular game. Yes, the halftime is a lot longer. You just can't wait to get back out on the field and go play again. But it goes by so fast. It seems like I put my hands under center, I send a receiver in motion, and then next thing you know, we're getting roped off the field. We lost. That's how fast it seemed like the game went, to be quite honest. Everything leading up to it might have felt like it took a little bit longer. The warm-up was something that's the biggest thing. When you go to warm up, you've never felt the emotion that you're going to feel. It's almost like you're kind of running on air. And Ricky Prohl, longtime receiver, played in a couple of Super Bowls, he kind of made sure he talked to the team about that leading up to the game. Don't let your emotions get the best of you in warm-ups. Your heart rate is going to be going a million miles an hour. And he was exactly right. So everybody was kind of prepared for that. You kind of knew, okay, this is what Ricky said it's going to feel like. And it felt like for everyone else. There was no, I need one more route. I need one more throw to get really loose. You felt it immediately, like, oh my gosh, I am lubed up and I am ready to go.
With Jake Delhomme, and I'm curious, like, if we gave you an hour here to run down every play in the Super Bowl, could you still do that? Do you remember every play, every audible? Could you do that?
Yeah, I could give you a lot of it. I'll be very honest, and that's not trying to, be whatever. But I could probably give you. I can. Listen, I started out, I think, 1 for 9. It wasn't like I was doing anything. I mean, the defense in New England was the defense was ridiculous in New England at that time. They were just loaded, and we couldn't run the football. We really couldn't throw it on them. And then right before the half, we were able to kind of gain some traction. Then a longer halftime allowed them to recover. It wasn't the typical fast NFL halftime. And the same thing in the third quarter, just kind of like beating our head against the wall, so to speak. And then we opened it up into our 2-minute situation in the fourth quarter. And we got them, a little tired, and that's when we made the most of our plays. It's just unfortunate we gave Tom Brady the football last.
With Jake Delhomme, well, you mentioned Brady, and obviously you played against him in a Super Bowl. You were in the league, shared the league with Brady, in your prime, his prime. With that being the case, do you feel like you got to step up for Brady and his legacy at all, with all this chatter that Mahomes has already taken over the mantle as the greatest quarterback ever?
Well, I'll tell you what. Listen, I think Tom is. I think Tom was phenomenal. I think he was great. I think he's awesome. I speak in Patrick Mahomes in reverential terms, man. I think this guy's just a different football player. One of my dear friends is the chief communications officer, the head PR, whatever the title is now for the Kansas City Chiefs. He was with me in Carolina. And when Patrick Mahomes was a rookie, he and I have stayed close friends and talked. And he told me, he said, Jake, we have a rookie quarterback. I'm telling you, he said, I think he's the greatest I've ever seen in my life. And this was before he ever played. Alex Smith was playing. This was around Thanksgiving of his rookie year. And Alex even knew. I mean, Alex will even tell you, yes, I'm not going to be here next year because they're playing this guy. And so I just think Patrick Mahomes is just different. He's a unicorn. I think we're watching a real life unicorn play. I just think he's just so different. I just think he's special.
Wow. Well, so if that's the case, if you feel that way, and a lot of people feel that way, how is Brock Purdy supposed to feel? Like, does he step on the field? Obviously, he's not going up directly against Mahomes, but Does he have uber respect? Does he feel like I can go toe-to-toe? Does he have to feel like he can go toe-to-toe with Mahomes?
Well, listen, Brock and I were different people, but if you kind of look at it, he and I are a lot alike than I guess Mahomes would be. I wasn't drafted; he was the last player picked, and my first year starting in Carolina was my 7th year in the league, and then we make this run. Like nobody, there were still questions about me throughout the course of that season, but we threw it maybe a little more, or it was just a little bit different. But there's so many questions about Brock, and it doesn't seem to bother him. He is just going to run this offense the way he knows how to run it. And I think if he just takes that same approach and don't make the game bigger than what it is. Yes, it's the pinnacle. Yes, it's the Super Bowl, but it's still a game. It's still the game that you played all season long. You took the team last year to the NFC Championship game. Now you're in the Super Bowl. You're one step further. You're very confident. Just go out and play your game. You can't worry about the guy on the other side. And I truly believe that. I know in our case, I wasn't worried about Tom Brady. I was more worried about the defense and Teddy Bruschi and Ted Washington and Willie McGinnis and Mike Vrabel and Ty Law and Rodney Harrison, those guys. I wasn't worried about Tom. When I did get worried about him, when they got the ball back with a minute left, that's when I got worried about him. But other than that, Brock just needs to worry about being the best quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it should be a great game. I mean, obviously you're still really connected to the game. You're an analyst down there in Carolina. Do you have a vibe one way or the other? Like, are you leaning one way or the other, Niners and the Chiefs on Sunday?
I'll be honest with you. Last year, I thought Philadelphia was the better football team, but I said I cannot go against Patrick Mahomes. And I think the same thing this year. I think overall the Niners have a better football team. They haven't shown it that much in the playoffs, to be quite honest. But I just think it's the Patrick Mahomes factor. The one Super Bowl he did lose, he was playing without, I believe, his 2 starting tackles. He could not even set his feet in the ground to throw the football. He was running all over the place. I just think Mahomes is a difference maker. I'm such a fan of his. Maybe I'm sounding like a fanboy, but I just, watching him play and watching the things that he does, he's a special player, and I enjoy watching him play.
Yeah,
so
he is.
If I had to pick, it's Patrick Mahomes. I think he's the difference maker.
Yep, I can't argue against that. I mean, I think that's what most people are expecting. If it goes the way of the Chiefs, it's going to be Mahomes leading the charge. It should be a great game. It's going to be a fun weekend. Enjoy it, Jake. We really appreciate you doing this today. Thank you.
Okay, y'all have a great evening.
You got it. Jake Delhomme. Jake Delhomme joining us here.
Yes. He didn't remember. Thank God.
Yeah, no references of plumbers or Jake the Snake Plumber or anything like that. But yeah, listen, that, like him talking about Mahomes, it's interesting how even when he answered, like, who do you see winning, he said Mahomes, not the Chiefs.
He's all in on Mahomes, man.
Yeah. It's not the Chiefs, it's Mahomes.
Dude, and there was zero hesitation. He's like, Tom's a great guy and everything, but it's Mahomes.
Yeah, I know. Which I think there's 2 separate conversations to be had here. Again, it's kind of like, it's like McDavid, like what we're talking about with McDavid or Ohtani in baseball, where like McDavid may be playing a way that we've never seen it. Like, it's the best, like, pure hockey. Doesn't mean he's greater than Gretzky with what Gretzky achieved. Right? And it's the same thing, I think, Mahomes and Brady. Mahomes is moving in that direction for sure, and he's got a head start even on McDavid. Clearly, McDavid hasn't won anything. Mahomes already won multiple Super Bowls and been to 3. But right. Brady did it for 23 years. Like, in terms of just consistent greatness and clutch, and I don't know, man. I think it's ludicrous to anoint Mahomes already. Right, because
he's got to do it for another 5-6 years.
Exactly,
and back.
But that's just the thing. The way, like, a guy like Jake Delhomme is talking, he's not equating this to number of Super Bowls.
Right.
In his mind already, Mahomes does not need to have 8 for this conversation to even start.
Yes.
From what I just heard, it sounds like he's already said that's the greatest quarterback that's ever walked the face of the earth.
Right. Exactly. And you know what? It was the same thing in golf in the year 2000. People were like, I love Nicklaus, but I'm sorry, this guy, that's the guy.
Exactly the same thing.
Tiger Woods the guy. And it's like, okay, that's fine. Yet, now you look at it 20 years later, and it's like, Nicklaus is coming back. It's like, wait a minute, man. Jack won 18, and Tiger didn't get there, and look where Tiger's. It's like you got to get to the end before you can really have the full conversation.
But you know what it's like, Brian. People, it's what have you done for me lately? People are laying eyes on this guy right now. There's people that haven't seen Tom Brady live. There's people that didn't see Michael Jordan compared to LeBron. So nobody laid eyes in our generation laid eyes on Bobby Orr. You know what I mean? Like that. So it's hard to judge. Go, well, Bobby Orr was the greatest hockey player. Well, we didn't watch him. We're watching highlights where he's skating around guys that look like they're standing around. Like, athletes have evolved. Like, that's where you're saying, well, McDavid, could be the greatest of all. Well, because we're watching him every night. We're not.
Yeah, it is. You're caught up in the moment.
Exactly.
The thing is about Brady is he literally was playing a year ago.
Yes.
He won a Super Bowl 3 years ago against Mahomes.
Yes.
It's like everyone says no one can beat Mahomes. The guy beat him twice with two different teams.
And let's be real. People love to forget and just move on to the next thing.
Right,
and say
exactly.
That's the greatest of all time.
And that's where we're. And listen, I'm not taking anything away from Mahomes. Clearly,
but I didn't think we were going to go there this quickly. To be honest with you,
it's this quick. And even what bothers me more than anything is like the conversation about clutch and stuff. I'm sorry, Brady defined that. Like Brady, you knew he was winning the ball game, and he did it. Does Mahomes do that too? Yes, but that you want to prove your clutch like Brady, you got to do that for a long time.
Yeah,
like a long time. We can talk about arm strength and athleticism and creativity and IQ and all that. You can have those conversations and absolutely lean Mahomes, but I think that's Tom Brady slander to suggest that Mahomes is the most clutch. No chance. Like not with what Brady just did for 23 years. Yeah. Leafs in action, Raptors in action. We'll come back and tee both up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050N on TSN 2. All right, today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. A little same-game parlay for the Leaf game tonight. Matthews not going 2 games without a goal. Austin Matthews, anytime goal scorer tonight. William Nylander, 4+ shots on net. Nick Robertson, 2+ shots on net. His brother playing tonight. Speaking of which, Jason Robertson, 3+ shots on net. I'm going big game hunting tonight. That parlay paying plus 730. Today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. FanDuel's goal in the first 10 minutes is the most electric bet in hockey and can be included in a same-game parlay on any NHL game. Please play responsibly, 18+ and physically located in Ontario. Brenden Dillon suspended 3 games for his hit on Acciari last night.
Tough hit. Brenden Dillon's not a dirty player. Stepped up to hit him hard, and it's unfortunate because it's an ill-timed hit, and he picked the head. Like he literally picked the head. Like Acciari, even though your head can
there, boy.
Like Acciari kind of skates like he bends down, like he's got a over his skates kind of stride. But, you got to take a better angle. You have to have a better timing on it because he literally picked the head on that.
Yeah.
The helmet went flying. Literally.
The angle, he's going at 2 o'clock almost.
Yeah, exactly.
And
kind of at him,
Yeah.
Look, the hit looked awful. It's an awful hit. But, to say or suggest that he's got to find some different angle there, he's kind of, I don't know, he's charging forward and he's committed and I don't know.
Well, and the one thing – because he got 3 games, but I don't think it was malicious. He didn't have the elbow out.
Dude, I totally get it, Noodles. You can't hit like the guys like that. It's like I've always said I agree with one thing Ray said about these, where it's like you got to set the tone and let them know that can never happen. Does 3 games do that? I'm not sure, but as far as the hit itself, he decided he was going to step up and make a hit. How a different angle or a different approach, I don't know what was available for Dillon different than what he did, because he was flat-footed, then he moved forward, and then you're doing what you're doing. I don't know what else changes.
Yeah, I guess, maybe you ride him out if you can. I'm not
There's
sure.
There's no riding out in that scenario. You got a guy heading north-south, and you're going right at him. It's there's no riding out there. That's either collision or you get feathers, and he opted for the collision. He's going to get suspended for it.
Yeah. Well, this is the conundrum in hockey is that it's a physical sport.
Right.
And, a guy like Brenden Dillon, that's literally what he brings to the
No
table.
kidding. And you want his
guy.
defense coach to say, hey, in the future, kind of go in a roundabout way and just rub him out against the boards. And he's going to say, yeah, and I might be out of the league in 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, he's got to play physical. I don't think it'll change his game. He just unfortunately got clipped for that. And you hope that Noel Acciari was all right because he was not in a good spot trying to get up.
No, he wasn't. Yeah, it was. I mean, listen, you knew he was going to get suspended when they announced that he was having a phone hearing. It was coming.
Yeah.
But 3 games. There you go,
Yeah.
3 games for Dillon. All right, Raptors in action tonight in Charlotte. Leafs in action tonight with Dallas in town. So we're going to break those down tomorrow. It's going to be a fun one. And we're getting closer to the Super Bowl. We'll continue to push ahead on that. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes today for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in, TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
Jake the Snake Plumber would have been nice that time. I'm not going to lie. We love that guy. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.